The libs are begging to keep murderous criminal gang members in the country for some reason. Also, gas prices are down around the country. And also, the libs are saying why that might not be a great thing. All that and more coming up on this episode of Turning Point Tonight. My name is Joe Bob. Thanks so much for tuning in. Together, we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback. This is Turning Point Tonight. Now, remember, you can always email the show at tpt@tpusa.com. You can send emails whether you agree with us or whether you're wrong. And if your email is abhorrent, there's a chance we will read it in the D block of this show, which is always one of the more fun things that we get to do. But before we talk about any of that stuff, and before we discuss with our panel, we want to talk about this auto pen situation and the chaos that it has caused. President Trump is saying that the pardons issued by then President Biden, well, they don't count because he didn't actually sign them. He used some machine auto pen to sign them. Now, there's several questions that rise from this. First of which is, did he know about it? Considering President Biden's senility and now the media uprising saying, yeah, he was senile and we covered it up. Did he know that he or his auto pen were signing something? If he did know, well, that opens up a couple questions. Why couldn't he just sign them himself? The guy was running to be president 6 months ago. He can't sign a piece of paper. And two, if he did know, but then let the auto pen sign it, was he in the room when it happened? Was he just watching the auto pen sign his signature? One of the guys over at the Heritage Foundation, the director of the Oversight Project, Mike Howell, said, well, Biden wasn't even in Washington, D.C. when some of these papers were signed and dated in Washington, D.C., so that's a problem. The other issue could be, well, what if he didn't know? What if President Biden had no idea what was being signed and his chief of staff said, yeah, the president said that's fine, go ahead and sign it? Well, that opens up a whole new can of worms, but is, in fact, great news for me. As you can see right here, I have a print of President Trump's signature. Now, according to the auto pen situation, whether or not President Trump actually signed this doesn't actually matter. And I'll read to you what it says here. I hereby pardon Joe Bob from paying any property tax, federal income tax, any taxes whatsoever, and he can do whatever he wants because he's governed by God, not the government. That's what it says. You just have to trust me on that. And whether or not President Trump knows about this doesn't matter, according to the auto pen situation with President Biden. So we've come to a lot of problems with this auto pen thing, and here to discuss the fallout of whether or not auto pens and machine signing is a good thing, we have a friend of the show, Danica Patrick, and Savannah Hernandez, Turning Point USA contributor. Guys, thanks for being here to discuss these very important issues. I say that sarcastically, but I'm also kind of serious.
Thanks for having us, Joe Bob.
Yeah, good to be here.
Danica, how long is it before the libs start saying that, well, the auto pen is being discriminated systematically by Big Sharpie, as President Trump likes to use the Sharpies? That was not an actual question. What does this actually say in this auto pen situation?
Well, the auto pen might identify as a human, and in particular, the president. And so then, of course, we have a question to answer. But I think it would just unveil the more ridiculous nature of the left and sort of the ideologies and beliefs that they've tried to push on people. So, maybe this should be a gold standard for the president, that things need to be signed by him. I mean, we watched President Trump sign so many executive orders as soon as he got into office. So we should baseline start that they could sign all of their own documents.
Yeah, it seems like it should be pretty par for the course. Like, signing a document isn't like, I don't know, going through a strenuous strength test. You're signing a piece of paper. Besides that, Savannah, MSNBC had this headline: President Trump also admitted to using an auto pen. NPR said many presidents have used it. The Trump team then said, yeah, if we're like writing letters to citizens, the president doesn't have time to sit there and sign all of this. So we use an auto pen. But for the big stuff, like treaties and pardons, he sits there and signs it. The mainstream media trying again to mislead the American people. Do you think they'll ever get the memo that nobody's buying that?
Yeah, Joe Bob, first off, before we get to that, I have been pushing back and scared of the AI takeover for years now, but apparently we've already been ruled by computers for the last 4 years since Joe Biden, as we know, was not even cognitively present enough to sign his own EOs. Apparently we had computers that were signing things and running this country, as you're seeing with this auto pen debacle, Joe Bob. So I think the main argument here, right, is was Joe Biden cognitively present enough to even know what was going on during his presidency? And I would just like to remind the American people that this is the same president who had to pick on reporters that were pre-given questions that he had the answers to because he did not have the cognitive ability to even answer basic questions. So I think that in itself kind of already answers for us this auto pen situation and Joe Biden's cognitive abilities. I mean, when we were at the RNC, actually, for Turning Point USA, I went and I asked CNN, I was like, hey, why did you guys cover for Joe Biden's very, very apparent cognitive decline? What's going on there? And now we're seeing this auto pen situation. I don't know. I mean, dots are connecting, Joe Bob. Doesn't seem like Joe Biden was all there, but that's just me being a conspiracy theorist, okay?
Yeah, the libs will cover up anything that deny they do it. Speaking of the libs, I wonder if you guys saw this. National gas price averages are down, which of course, blanket, that's a good thing. Here was a headline from MarketWatch. Gas prices are headed below $3 a gallon. Why that's not actually a good thing. Danica, can you think of any reason why consumer products being priced so that consumers can actually buy them would be a bad thing in the libs' mind?
I don't know. I think in this one, you might have to follow the money. Who is getting the money when the prices were higher? Who's getting who are all these people that were on 150 or $200,000 salaries that end up with 50, 60, 70, 80 million dollars in the bank account? I'm not really sure, but it doesn't really connect. The dots don't connect. Look, what are they going to say next? Egg prices are down and this is a bad thing. Too many chickens are alive. What's after that? The housing prices are down. People are homeless. There's not a lot of logic. And unfortunately, what we need to do is we need to celebrate when these things happen. As the president has said, this country needs to become energy independent again, which it was under his administration and will be again, and that we have a wealth of commodities here to support this country and beyond, and maybe from Greenland too in the future.
Yeah, hopefully, especially from there. Geographically, strategically, Greenland is a very important place. We don't have to get into that right now. But Savannah, so the argument that they're making in this article is saying, well, when the economy slows, people don't need to drive anywhere, so there's less demand, therefore gas prices are going down, which to me kind of like is saying, well, it's bad if we lock up criminals because then there will be less crime on the streets, which will lead to a lack of police officer jobs. Okay, there's still less crime. That's the thing we really care about. At what point are the libs ever going to recognize, well, these are the things we actually care about and affect our day-to-day lives?
Joe Bob, listen to me, and I can tell you right now why gas prices lowering is actually a bad thing. And it's because of climate change, right? So if gas prices are lower, then people are going to want to buy gas-powered cars, which is going to be bad for climate change. But wait a minute, liberals are actually currently burning EVs to a crisp because Elon Musk is a fascist. So, I'm having a hard time kind of following the timeline here because we were supposed to hate gas. And, maybe that's why gas prices lowering are bad because people will use more gas because it's cheaper. But then also we're not really seeing a push toward EVs anymore in terms of climate change because the liberals are literally burning down Teslas as we speak. It's just a very interesting time to be alive, if you ask me.
I don't know how I missed. Of course, it's climate change. Climate change is the
exactly.
problem, and so it's a diagnose all with the climate change. Speaking of things that libs aren't going to learn on, this I thought was fascinating out of the state of California. The California Senate, on the floor of the California Senate, used to have these 16 seats for journalists to sit on the floor and cover what's going on in the California Senate. Those went away when COVID happened, and then those seats were given to staffers. Up to this point, the California Association of Journalists that they've got there have said, hey, we want these seats back, but they will not, the California Senate will not revert to pre-COVID era seating. Uh, Danica, we've talked a lot about the idea that whenever the government does something, it's permanent. That I'm going to forget who said this, but there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government solution. If they're still using COVID era relics now at this point in time, are we ever going to trust them to give up the power and ability that they once had if some other disaster breaks out in the country?
I don't think that we have really seen much from California to develop a whole lot of trust in general. I'm seeing footage from friends and people back in California where they're showing that there's been nothing done from the fires even. So I don't think California's doing a great job. I think they are definitely an example of extreme left and how bad things can get. And so, look, media is totally changing, and thank God for it. I just got off doing an interview with Jessica Reed Krause, who has grown a huge following called House and Habit, and she has a huge Substack following. This is new media, and we're just not going to put up with people that are pushing agendas and putting out there media and news that's not true. So I think as you said, what a time to be alive. We're living in a great era. And I mean, as if we were talking about the fact that California was Republican at one point, and by the looks of it, it's on its way to being Republican again, because I believe they also shifted percentage-wise the most to Republican votes as a state goes. So once that happens, it's red for a real long time.
That'll be super interesting if that happens. Savannah, as a journalist who is known to ruffle some feathers offline, we've talked about how uncomfortable that makes me feel. Your ability
Every
to
time.
just go, go at people in the moment. What would be your response to being barred from covering the Senate in California and all the stuff that they're probably hiding?
Sure. I mean, I can tell you right now why journalists are barred specifically. I just got back from California. And did you know, Joe Bob, that if you're an illegal immigrant, you can still get free housing, free food stamps, and free medical care in California in 2025? Okay. This is something that's still going on. On top of that, last week, Gavin Newsom's Department of Finance requested a $3.4 billion loan for Medi-Cal, which, by the way, is the free health care in California that was extended to illegal immigrants. This is exactly why journalists are banned, because California is spending billions upon trillions of freaking dollars on illegal immigrants and all of these bad policies. Like, wasn't there supposed to be a high-speed rail in California? Whatever happened with that? I mean, the entire state is in disarray. It's why Gavin Newsom is taking a step toward his podcasting career to try to do damage control, because he destroyed the entire state. And we can't have journalists coming in and try to remind people of how degraded the place is,
To your point about illegals getting health care, that is not true. President Obama said that during a State of the Union address. So, there's no way that that's actually happening. I think somebody said he lied during that speech too, but I don't know. I guess I don't remember
Politicians
that.
lying, Joe Bob, they would never. Please don't.
Yeah, they would never. Danica Patrick, Savannah Hernandez will be back after this. Also coming up, we're going to talk to our White House correspondent, Monica Page, about the Trump-Putin call, among other things. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.